The sun was just breaking over the horizon, casting long golden streaks across the rusted tin roofs and overgrown pastures of the old Jensen ranch. Jake had never expected to inherit anything from his late uncle, let alone a sprawling property that looked like it had been abandoned for decades. As he stepped onto the cracked wooden porch, a chill ran down his spine, not from the cold, but from the eerie silence that seemed to swallow the entire property. The wind whispered through broken fences, carrying with it a faint, musky scent of hay and something else, something wild. He felt a twinge of unease, a premonition that this place held secrets that were waiting to be unearthed. The first thing Jake noticed was a shadow moving near the treeline. It was sleek, powerful, and impossibly graceful. A horse, wild, untamed, and strikingly beautiful, stared back at him with eyes that seemed to pierce into his very soul. He froze. The horse pawed at the dirt, nostrils flaring, chest heaving as if guarding some secret. For a moment, their eyes locked, and Jake felt an unexpected connection, a strange mix of fear, respect, and curiosity. This was no ordinary horse. As Jake stepped further into the overgrown yard, he noticed remnants of life past, rusted saddles, broken water troughs, and faded signs of prosperity. It was as if time had simply forgotten this place. And yet, the horse remained, moving with cautious curiosity, circling him like a shadow. Every instinct in Jake screamed caution, but there was also an undeniable pull, an almost magnetic curiosity about what lay hidden here. He had grown up around horses, sure, but this creature exuded a kind of intelligence and wildness that both unnerved and fascinated him. The first night in the cabin brought its own unease. The old structure groaned under the wind, and every creak seemed magnified in the darkness. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the horse, he began calling it Whisper, was not just a resident of this land but somehow its guardian. He remembered his uncle's letters, hidden in a drawer, that spoke cryptically about a treasure hidden under the earth, and a guardian who chooses its time. Jake laughed nervously at the thought. Treasure? In a rusted old ranch? It sounded absurd, yet the unease didn't leave him. He knew he had stumbled onto something far more than just an inheritance. By dawn, Whisper had moved closer to the cabin, though still at a cautious distance. Jake ventured into the pasture with a bucket of feed, trying to coax the horse with gentle words. Whisper's eyes followed him, calculating, wary. One false move, and the horse would bolt, disappearing into the brush like smoke. But gradually, with soft murmurs and steady patience, Whisper allowed Jake to approach closer, sniffing the air around him, nostrils flaring as if weighing his intentions. A bond was beginning to form, tenuous, fragile, but undeniably real. Jake spent the next few days exploring the ranch, taking in the sprawling fields, the decrepit barns, and the tangled woods at the edge of the property. He began to notice strange markings in the earth, shallow disturbances near an old oak tree, and curious indentations along the creek. Whisper, always nearby, seemed drawn to these anomalies, circling them, pawing at the ground, as if urging Jake to investigate. Every night, Jake would lie awake, mind racing with possibilities. Could there really be something hidden here? Something worth uncovering? The locals had warned him. That place is cursed, one neighbor had said, shaking his head. No one goes near it after dark. Horses run wild there, and some say strange things happen. Jake had brushed off the warnings, attributing them to old rancher superstition. But now, standing under the vast sky with Whisper pacing silently nearby, he wasn't so sure. There was a tension here, a kind of charged anticipation, as if the ranch itself was holding its breath, waiting for the right moment to reveal its secret. On the third day, an incident tested their emerging bond. Whisper bolted suddenly as a crow cawed violently overhead, sending Jake sprawling into the dust. Heart racing, he realized how vulnerable he was on this land, how unprepared he was for the raw power and unpredictability of a wild horse. And yet, after the initial fear, something remarkable happened. Whisper circled back, softer this time, nudging Jake gently as if to apologize, or perhaps to reassure. That simple act, a gesture of trust from a creature that had known nothing but caution and survival, left Jake deeply moved. He understood in that moment that this horse was not just an animal. Whisper was a guide, a key to unlocking the mysteries of this forgotten ranch. By the fourth day, Jake's curiosity had morphed into determination. He started following Whisper deeper into the overgrown fields, through brambles and over fallen logs, observing how the horse moved, how it sniffed and pawed at certain areas, alert to things Jake could not yet comprehend. Every time Whisper's attention sharpened, Jake felt a surge of excitement mixed with anxiety. Each shallow scrape in the earth, each oddly disturbed patch of soil, became a potential clue. And slowly, the puzzle began to take shape. Whisper knew where to look, but why? What was buried here, hidden from sight for decades? The evening sun painted the fields with a surreal golden glow as Jake paused, sweat on his brow, watching Whisper paw at the base of a large rock outcropping. Something about this spot felt different. The air seemed to shimmer with a tension he couldn't explain. He bent down to examine the soil, brushing away loose dirt with his hands, heart hammering. And then he felt it. Something hard, metallic, buried just beneath the surface. His breath caught. Could it really be? After years of neglect, decay, and abandonment, had the horse led him to the first piece of the hidden treasure? Whisper nudged him again, soft and insistent, eyes gleaming with something almost human in their intensity. Jake's pulse quickened, not just from the discovery, but from the realization that this bond, this fragile trust, was leading him towards something life-changing. He whispered softly, almost reverently, "What have you found, old friend?" The horse's ears flicked, as if acknowledging his words, and Jake felt a swell of emotion. Here, in this forgotten ranch, amidst rust, dust, and shadows, a connection had formed that transcended words, logic, or reason. And he knew, whatever was coming next, it would change everything. The next morning, Jake could barely sleep. His mind kept returning to the metallic edge he had felt buried beneath the soil. What could it be? Coins? Tools? A time capsule? Or something even more valuable that had been hidden for decades? He glanced out the window at Whisper, grazing quietly but alert, ears twitching toward every distant sound. The horse had grown increasingly attached to him, circling him as he walked, nuzzling his hand when he paused. Yet, there was still a cautious wariness in those dark, intelligent eyes, as if Whisper alone knew how dangerous or astonishing what lay buried might be. Determined, Jake returned to the rock outcropping. The air was thick with the scent of earth and something older, almost metallic. He brought a small shovel and gloves, but Whisper wouldn't let him get too close without careful pacing. Every time Jake raised the shovel, the horse would step in front of him, nudging him gently, guiding the angle, almost directing him where to dig. It was uncanny. He had grown up around horses, yet he had never experienced this level of communication, this subtle but unmistakable intelligence. Whisper was more than a companion. The horse had become his partner in uncovering the ranch's hidden past. Hours passed, and the soil beneath the rock began to give way. Each shovelful of dirt revealed fragments of something long forgotten. Pieces of a wooden box appeared, its edges weathered and cracked, reinforced with rusted iron bands. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. The locals had laughed at the notion of any value left on the old ranch, calling it worthless. Yet here he was, dirt-streaked and exhilarated, uncovering a mystery that had been buried, literally and metaphorically, for decades. Whisper pawed the ground impatiently, nose pressed close to the excavation. Jake laughed, a breathless mix of excitement and disbelief. All right, he said softly. I see you're eager. Let's see what's inside." Finally, with a careful lift, the wooden box emerged. Jake set it on the ground and brushed off the remaining soil. The box was surprisingly heavy, hinting at something substantial inside. He glanced at Whisper, who stared intently, nostrils flaring, as if urging him to proceed carefully. Jake hesitated, feeling the weight not only of the box but of the history it contained. His uncle's letters, his family's dismissive comments about the ranch, the warnings of the locals, all of it had led to this moment. With trembling hands, he opened the lid. Inside lay a collection of items that made his jaw drop. There were old documents, brittle with age but legible, land deeds, maps marked with strange symbols, and letters written in his uncle's precise, careful hand. And then, something that made his heart leap, several gold coins, glinting faintly in the morning sun. But it wasn't just the coins. Buried with them was a small chest containing intricately carved horse figurines, silver spurs, and a medal engraved with the words, "Champion of the Prairie, 1927. Jake realized this was no ordinary treasure. It was a family history, a legacy of dedication, horses, and the ranch itself, a treasure of pride and perseverance, hidden from everyone but those who would truly appreciate it. Whisper circled him slowly, ears flicking, as if satisfied that the treasure had been found. Jake felt a rush of gratitude and awe. This horse, wild and untamed, had guided him to something far beyond monetary value. He knelt beside the box, letting Whisper nuzzle his shoulder as he examined each item. Every document told a story, every coin a memory, and every figurine a testament to his uncle's love for these lands and for the horses that had roamed them. Jake's eyes blurred with emotion. He understood, in that moment, why the horse had been so protective. This treasure was not just buried in the soil. It was buried in time, in history, in loyalty. But just as the exhilaration reached its peak, a new tension arose. From the edge of the property, a low rumble echoed, the sound of tires crunching over gravel. Jake's heart sank. Neighbors? Treasure hunters? He wasn't sure, but the sense of impending conflict made the hair on his arms stand on end. Whisper bristled, nostrils flaring, hooves stamping the ground. Jake realized the horse wasn't just protective of him. It was protective of the land, of the secrets buried here. He had to think quickly. With the box tucked carefully under a tarp, he motioned for Whisper to move with him toward the cabin, every sense alert. The figure emerging from the treeline was older, rugged, a local rancher who had seen better days. He stopped a few yards away, hands raised, eyes scanning the horse and Jake. "I saw you digging," the man said gruffly. "That horse, he's been guarding something for years. You shouldn't be here." Jake felt a surge of tension. He hadn't expected to encounter anyone, let alone someone who seemed to know Whisper so well. "I didn't know," Jake said cautiously, trying to mask both excitement and fear. "I just found this horse and he led me here." The rancher's eyes softened, though his tone remained firm. "That horse, he chooses who can see the ranch's secrets. Your uncle trusted him, and now it seems you're meant to see them too. But beware, others will come who won't respect what you found." Jake nodded, heart racing. Whisper snorted softly, rubbing against Jake's leg as if sensing the gravity of the conversation. For the first time, Jake realized the depth of this horse's loyalty, not just to him, but to the legacy of the ranch itself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and crimson, Jake reflected on the day's events. He had inherited a rusted, abandoned ranch that everyone had dismissed, but now, thanks to Whisper, he had uncovered a treasure of history, pride, and unimaginable value. The bond between man and horse had proven to be far more powerful than any skepticism or doubt. And yet, as he prepared to lock up for the night, he felt a quiet thrill of anticipation. The box had revealed only part of the story, and Whisper's restless energy suggested that more secrets lay waiting in the shadows, ready to reshape his understanding of the ranch, and perhaps his own place in its story. Before turning in, Jake whispered a soft promise to Whisper. "We'll protect it. We'll understand it. Together." The horse nuzzled him, eyes reflecting a strange mix of approval and expectation. Outside, the wind carried the scent of earth and history, a reminder that this was only the beginning. The rusted ranch, once dismissed as worthless, was alive with stories waiting to be uncovered, and one wild, extraordinary horse would guide him every step of the way. The following morning, Jake woke to the faint sound of hooves on the gravel. Whisper was already alert, ears flicking, tail swishing nervously. Something had changed overnight. The wind carried a subtle tension, a sense that the ranch had more to reveal, and that they were no longer alone in guarding its secrets. Jake grabbed a hat and followed Whisper into the pastures, careful to move slowly and respect the horse's space. Every step felt deliberate, weighted with anticipation. They arrived at a hidden grove near the far edge of the property, where gnarled oak trees arched over a carpet of wildflowers. Whisper halted, nostrils flaring, pawing at a patch of earth at the base of the oldest oak. Jake knelt to examine it and immediately noticed the subtle indentation, almost like a hidden trapdoor or concealed cavity. His pulse quickened. If the first discovery had been extraordinary, this felt like the next layer of the mystery, the next chapter in the story his uncle had left behind. As he brushed away leaves and soil, Jake uncovered another small chest, surprisingly well preserved despite decades of exposure. He glanced at Whisper, whose ears twitched in approval, almost impatiently urging him to open it. With hands trembling, Jake lifted the lid and froze. Inside were yellowed letters, photographs of proud ranch hands, and carefully folded journals detailing his uncle's life, the trials, the triumphs, and, unexpectedly, accounts of Whisper's ancestors. His uncle had documented the horses that had roamed the ranch, the bonds formed, the lessons learned. And there, sketched meticulously in ink, was Whisper himself, or at least his lineage generations back. Jake's heart swelled with awe. This ranch, dismissed by outsiders as worthless, was a living archive of loyalty, perseverance, and the deep, unspoken connection between humans and horses. Every artifact told a story, every page a reminder of care, respect, and unyielding trust. He ran his fingers over the journal's pages, imagining his uncle walking these fields, tending the horses, nurturing a legacy that no one had appreciated until now. Whisper nudged his shoulder, warm and steady, as if acknowledging the weight of the discovery. But as Jake immersed himself in the history, a sudden rustling from the woods made him jump. Out of the shadows came a figure, a young man, probably in his 20s, eyes wide with both awe and fear. "I saw you uncovering that first chest," the stranger said breathlessly. "I've been trying to protect it. People would do anything to get their hands on this place." Jake's pulse raced. The first local rancher had warned him, but now here was someone else, someone clearly knowledgeable and concerned. He quickly realized that protecting the ranch's secrets would require more than just patience. It would require strategy, trust, and an alliance with Whisper, who had proven to be far more perceptive than any human. The young man introduced himself as Eli, a local who had grown up hearing legends about the Jensen Ranch. He explained that Whisper's ancestors had been regarded as almost sacred by the original ranchers, a lineage of horses known for intelligence, loyalty, and uncanny intuition. Eli warned Jake that there were those who would exploit the discovery, turning the hidden treasures and documents into profit, stripping the ranch of its history. Jake's jaw tightened. He had inherited far more than land. He had inherited a responsibility to preserve, protect, and honor a legacy that stretched across generations. The tension between excitement and danger heightened as Jake and Eli worked together, mapping the locations hinted at in the journals. Whisper led the way, pawing, sniffing, and occasionally whinnying in a way that seemed almost like communication. The horse's connection to the land, and to Jake, was now undeniable. Each new finding revealed another layer: medals from equestrian competitions, handcrafted tack, even letters of guidance from past ranch hands to his uncle, expressing hope that someone worthy would one day continue the ranch's story. The narrative was unfolding like a puzzle, and Whisper was the key piece. Late that afternoon, as they approached a secluded barn at the far edge of the property, Jake noticed subtle signs of recent activity: footprints in the dust, hay scattered unusually. His stomach tightened. Someone had been here, recently, perhaps tracking them, perhaps searching for the same hidden legacy. Whisper froze, muscles coiled, nostrils flaring, ears pivoting toward the tree-line. Jake instinctively reached for a sturdy branch, heart racing. The horse and human were aligned in instinct and focus, an unspoken team ready to defend what was theirs. The moment stretched, tense and electric. Then, a soft whinny from Whisper broke the silence. From behind a stack of hay bales emerged a small, scrappy foal, curious but cautious. It was an unexpected, almost magical moment. New life at the heart of a mystery. The foal mirrored Whisper's alertness, pawing gently, sniffing the air, connecting the generations in a single, powerful bond. Jake felt a surge of wonder. This ranch wasn't just about old treasures or dusty journals. It was about life, continuity, and the living spirit of horses that had endured hardship and neglect for decades. Jake knelt and allowed the foal to approach, feeling its small nose press against his palm. Whisper circled them protectively, glancing at Jake with something like approval. Eli looked on awestruck. This is what the ranch is really about," Eli murmured. "It's not the treasure, it's the life it preserves, the horses, their stories, their connection to humans. That's priceless." Jake nodded, emotion welling in his chest. Every struggle, every moment of fear and doubt had led to this, an intimate, living revelation of the ranch's true worth. But the story wasn't over. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields, Jake noticed movement along the edge of the tree-line. Another figure, this one cloaked and hesitant, watched from a distance. The thrill of discovery was now intertwined with danger. Someone else knew about the ranch, about Whisper, about the hidden legacies. Jake's pulse quickened. Protecting the ranch, and the bond he had formed with Whisper, would require courage, strategy, and trust. The land was alive with history, but also with unseen threats. As night fell, Jake sat near the barn, Whisper at his side, the foal nestled close. The journals, the medals, the hidden chests, they were symbols, yes, but the real treasure was this bond, human and horse, past and present, life and legacy intertwined. He whispered softly to Whisper, "We've only just begun. Whatever comes, we face it together." The horse nuzzled him gently, eyes reflecting intelligence and loyalty that transcended words. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the promise of revelations yet to come, dangers yet to confront, and the enduring magic of a ranch that refused to be forgotten. Jake knew one thing for certain: the rusted ranch was no longer just property. It was a story, a living, breathing testament to trust, courage, and the extraordinary bond between humans and horses. And with Whisper leading the way, every shadow, every whisper of movement, every clue hidden in soil and wood, held the promise of discovery, wonder, and awe. The next morning, the ranch felt alive in a way Jake had never experienced before. Whisper's ears twitched constantly, nostrils flaring as he moved through the pastures with a purpose that went beyond routine grazing. The foal followed closely behind, small but determined, occasionally mimicking Whisper's cautious movements. Jake felt a surge of pride and awe. The bond they shared was no longer tentative. It was a living connection that guided every step he took on the ranch. Yet, beneath that wonder, a gnawing tension persisted. Someone was watching, and he could feel it in the rustle of leaves, the whisper of the wind across the broken fences. Determined to uncover more of his uncle's secrets, Jake returned to the journals and maps they had discovered. Eli joined him, bringing his local knowledge and years of observing the ranch's rhythms. Together, they traced the hidden paths, old corral foundations, and the subtle disturbances in the soil that Whisper had instinctively marked. Every clue seemed to pulse with importance, but the deeper they dug, the more complicated the story became. This was no simple treasure hunt. It was a carefully concealed legacy, a labyrinth of history, trust, and danger intertwined. As the sun climbed higher, a shadow darted across the tree-line. Jake's heart skipped a beat. The same cloaked figure he had seen days before was back, moving cautiously, almost stalking them. Whisper stiffened immediately, muscles coiled, ears pinned slightly backward. The horse's instincts were sharp. Jake had learned that by now. He raised a hand to Eli, signaling caution. Every step felt loaded with tension, the anticipation of a confrontation simmering just beneath the surface. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed from the barn, a sound that made the ground tremble in their chests. Jake spun, heart racing, and saw the cloaked figure knocking over a stack of old feed barrels, possibly to distract them, possibly to intimidate. Whisper whinnied sharply, rushing toward the disturbance, his body a perfect balance of raw power and precision. Jake followed, adrenaline surging, realizing that protecting the legacy of the ranch and the treasures they had uncovered would demand everything he had. The cloaked figure stumbled into the clearing, and Jake finally got a full look. It was a man, rugged and desperate, eyes darting nervously. "Step away from the barn!" Jake shouted, trying to project authority he wasn't sure he fully felt. The man froze, then slowly raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt the horse. I just need the documents. I'm being chased and I thought..." His voice trailed off. Jake studied him, sensing a mix of fear and honesty. Yet trust would not come easily, not in this place, not when the stakes were so high. Whisper's low, warning snort echoed across the clearing. The horse's gaze never left the stranger, every muscle taut, ready to defend what was theirs. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. The ranch, once empty and silent, was now a stage for a confrontation of history, legacy, and survival. Slowly he stepped forward. "If you want anything from this place," he said firmly, "you earn it. You earn our trust." The man swallowed hard, nodding. "I understand. My name is Sam. My family worked here decades ago. I've been trying to recover what was lost, but I wasn't prepared for how guarded this place is." Jake glanced at Whisper, who pawed the ground but did not advance aggressively, an acknowledgement that Sam's intentions might be genuine, but caution was still required. Eli leaned in, whispering, "This is why your uncle kept so much secret. Not everyone who comes here deserves to know." Jake nodded silently, absorbing the lesson as he felt the gravity of his role. By late afternoon, they had begun to cooperate, Sam helping to unearth another hidden cache near the creek, where the water ran clear and the soil was soft. Whisper led the way, pawing, circling, and occasionally nudging Jake toward the precise spots to dig. This time, they discovered a set of ancient saddles, perfectly preserved tack, and more letters describing the horse's training, victories, and trials. Jake marveled at the attention to detail, at the foresight his uncle had shown in documenting everything. Each discovery felt like a dialogue across generations, a conversation whispered through artifacts and guided by the instincts of a remarkable horse. Even as progress was made, the stakes grew heavier. The cloaked figure in the woods had returned, and Jake could sense eyes on the horizon. Every footstep, every creak of a gate, every rustle of leaves carried the tension of potential danger. Whisper seemed to sense the growing urgency, pacing in tight circles, snorting sharply whenever Jake approached too close to a suspicious area. The horse's instincts, honed over years of survival and lineage, had become their greatest asset in protecting the ranch's secrets. As twilight fell, a startling revelation came to light. One of the letters from the hidden cache detailed a previous discovery, a chest filled with rare heirlooms buried in the foundation of the old farmhouse itself. Jake realized that the treasures they had uncovered were only the beginning. The true prize was something far more significant, something that had been hidden beneath the very walls of the home. Whisper's behavior confirmed it. The horse pawed and snorted insistently near the farmhouse, ears alert, nostrils flaring. It was as if Whisper knew exactly what lay beneath, waiting for Jake to act. The emotional tension was almost unbearable. The rusted ranch, once dismissed by outsiders as worthless, now held layers of history, danger, and wonder. Jake felt a mix of exhilaration and fear, the thrill of discovery tempered by the very real threat of those who might seek to exploit it. Yet through it all, the bond with Whisper and the foal remained unbreakable, a lifeline of trust, courage, and empathy. Every action they took was guided by the horse's wisdom, a living compass that led them closer to the ultimate revelation. As night enveloped the ranch, Jake sat on the porch, the soft glow of lanterns illuminating the journals, letters, and artifacts they had collected. Whisper rested nearby, muscles relaxed but eyes still alert, and the foal curled beside them, exhausted but safe. Jake whispered softly, almost reverently, "Tomorrow we finish this. Whatever is buried, whatever secrets remain, we'll uncover them, together." The wind carried the scent of earth, hay, and the promise of history yet revealed. It was a night of reflection, of quiet triumph, and of preparation. The climax was near, and Jake knew that the final chapter of this rusted ranch's story was about to unfold, dramatic, heart-wrenching, and unforgettable. Dawn broke over the Jensen ranch, painting the sky with streaks of rose and gold, as if nature itself knew this day would change everything. Jake, Whisper, the foal, Eli, and even Sam stood at the edge of the old farmhouse, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The journals, letters, and discovered treasures had brought them to this moment. Yet, no one could predict the significance of what lay beneath the worn foundation of the abandoned house. The wind whispered through broken shutters, carrying an almost mystical sense of history waiting to be uncovered. Whisper pawed the earth impatiently, nostrils flaring, eyes focused on the farmhouse foundation. Jake could feel the electricity in the air, a mixture of awe, fear, and excitement. Slowly, deliberately, he began to remove the old floorboards, each creak of wood echoing through the empty home. The foal circled cautiously, mirroring Whisper's alert movements, while Eli and Sam assisted, their hands trembling slightly as they brushed away decades of dust and dirt. With each shovelful of soil, the story of the Jensen ranch came closer to being fully revealed. Then, with a final scrape of earth, Jake's shovel hit something solid. He knelt, heart hammering, and cleared the remaining soil to reveal an iron-bound chest, remarkably intact despite decades of neglect. Whisper stepped back, as if giving Jake the moment to claim what he had been led to all along. With a deep breath, Jake lifted the heavy lid and gasped. Inside lay a treasure beyond imagination. Not just coins or medals this time, but documents, journals, and photographs meticulously preserved, detailed records of the ranch's history, his uncle's careful accounts of every horse that had roamed these fields, and, most remarkably, legal documents proving ownership of vast, adjoining lands that had been hidden from prying eyes. There were maps marking natural water sources, grazing routes, and even letters to future caretakers of the ranch emphasizing stewardship, care, and respect for the animals that had shaped its legacy. Jake felt tears prick his eyes. This was the culmination of decades of dedication, sacrifice, and love, a hidden inheritance that extended far beyond mere property. The Jensen Ranch, once dismissed as worthless, now stood as a symbol of resilience, loyalty, and the extraordinary bond between humans and horses. Whisper nuzzled Jake's shoulder, and for a moment, words weren't necessary. The horse, loyal and wise, had guided him every step of the way, proving that the greatest treasures were not always silver or gold, but trust, connection, and the living spirit of life itself. As the group marveled at the discoveries, a sudden noise drew their attention. From the far edge of the property emerged a small group of people, local onlookers, curious neighbors, and a few opportunists hoping to claim what they assumed was a worthless inheritance. But Whisper's presence alone was enough to command attention. The horse stamped, whinnied, and pawed the ground, eyes blazing with intelligence and authority. Jake stepped forward, holding up his hands, and calmly but firmly addressed the crowd. This isn't just land. It isn't just treasure. It's history, it's life, it's a legacy. Anyone who comes here must respect that, or leave. The effect was immediate. Whispers of awe and respect rippled through the crowd. Even those who had come with questionable intentions paused, struck by the presence of the horse and the weight of history in Jake's words. Whisper's gaze never wavered, and Jake realized that together, they had created a bond so strong that it extended beyond themselves. This land, this ranch, and its animals were protected not just by law, but by trust, loyalty, and understanding. With the immediate danger past, Jake turned back to the chest. Eli helped him examine the documents more carefully, pointing out key details, hidden parcels of land that could secure the ranch's future, instructions for restoring old barns, and advice on caring for the horses. Sam, too, contributed stories passed down through his family, filling in gaps in the ranch's history. Each discovery, each narrative added layers to the story, creating a tapestry of life, work, and dedication that spanned generations. Whisper and the foal roamed freely, exploring the fields and pastures with a newfound confidence. Jake watched them, a sense of deep contentment washing over him. The horse had guided him to this moment, but the real treasure was the bond they had forged, the lessons learned about patience, respect, and the interconnectedness of life. For years, the ranch had seemed forgotten, abandoned, and worthless, but now, in its entirety, it was alive with history, beauty, and possibility. That evening, Jake, Eli, Sam, and the horses gathered around a small fire near the barn. Lanterns cast warm light across the journals, maps, and artifacts they had uncovered. Whisper lay beside Jake, head resting lightly against his knee, while the foal nestled close. Jake whispered softly, almost in awe, "We found more than treasure today. We found the heart of this place, its story, its soul." Eli nodded, emotion in his voice. "And thanks to this horse, the story lives on." As the fire crackled and the stars emerged above, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought him here, the rusted ranch dismissed by everyone, the lonely and mysterious horse that guided him, the hidden treasures and secrets that revealed themselves only to those willing to respect the land. He understood now that inheritance was never just about wealth. It was about responsibility, love, and the willingness to honor what came before. Whisper lifted his head, ears twitching toward the night sounds of the ranch, eyes reflecting a calm pride. Jake smiled, brushing the horse's mane, and felt a wave of gratitude. This ranch, this legacy, and this extraordinary horse had changed his life forever. The rusted old land that no one else had valued had become his greatest teacher, showing him courage, patience, and the enduring power of connection. Before heading inside for the night, Jake stood in the field, looking at the horses grazing in the soft moonlight. He raised his voice gently, almost as a promise to the land and to the creatures that had trusted him. "We will protect this place. We will care for it and we will honor its story." Whisper snorted softly in reply, the foal nuzzled him, and the wind carried the rustling of leaves like applause from the very land itself. The next morning, Jake uploaded a few photos of Whisper and the ranch, sharing the story online, not for fame, but to inspire others to respect the bond between humans and horses, and to show that even the most forgotten places can hold unimaginable treasures. Comments poured in, people sharing their own stories, marveling at the trust between Jake and Whisper, and expressing awe at the beauty of the hidden ranch. Likes and shares began to climb naturally, as viewers felt the genuine emotion and cinematic wonder of the journey. Jake smiled, looking out over the fields. The rusted ranch had revealed its secrets, and Whisper had been the key. Together, they had unearthed not just treasure, but a story of resilience, legacy, and trust that would echo for generations. And in that moment, the once worthless ranch was priceless, not for the gold or documents, but for the life, history, and bond it had nurtured. The horse, the land, and the man had become inseparable, a living testament to the extraordinary power of trust, courage, and connection.